The illusion of globalism is beginning to fade. And once you've taken your blinders off, or you could reverse that and said, taken the sunglasses that the establishment doesn't want you to wear and put them on like they live, you then see for yourself that you've been lied to over and over again by so-called mainstream media that's simply bought and paid for by multinational interests that have conquered this country. And it doesn't mean that when you support InfoWars or President Trump or nationalism or free market capitalism that you think you're perfect or you think we're perfect. But we know it works 1,000 times better and is what builds big, open, free, wealthy societies. Now, that creates the byproduct of decadence, so that's certainly a real issue. But globalists like George Soros that have been openly bragging that they are funding, trying to keep the EU in control of countries that never voted to enter it, like the UK, the fact that he's so brazen and so out in the open only will accelerate the planetary awakening to their tyranny.
With another 280 North Koreans crossing the border, soon all eyes will be on one member of the delegation. Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, will become the first member of the Kim ruling family to set foot in the country.
It's the sister of Kim Jong-un, the bloodthirsty dictator who's constantly threatening to nuke the U.S. and all this. And so they're there as part of a, quote, peace delegation because Trump's put pressure on them for the first time ever. A member of the ruling communist royal house, communism is always royal, it's no form of royalty. It's the first time they've come to the table because they understand how much trouble they're in. NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN all praised her and said she was glaring at Pence, and liberals said, oh, we hope she attacks Pence, and oh, she's so sexy, oh, she's so beautiful. And then when it blew up in their face, they began to remove the video. Look at this, Kim Jong-un's sister stealing the show at the Winter Olympics. Oh my gosh. They keep more than half their population in slave camps, and they admit that they, quote, take babies like you take a chicken's eggs at birth, so they're not loyal to the family. Millions die every couple of years. They torture people to death like no one's ever seen. And our media, I remember Lester Holt.
Kate, we traveled about 4 hours east of Pyongyang to visit a ski resort that has significance in the recent talks we've been watching between the North and South over the Winter Olympics. This, we're told, is a place where athletes from the North and South will be training together. We were also invited here, I would suspect, because it is not what people expect to see in North Korea. A modern ski resort. It's got patriotic music and videos playing from a screen here, and a lot of families out enjoying themselves. We've spoken to some of those families, people expressing a sense of optimism that the two countries are speaking together, a sense of pride that they will be competing together in the Winter Olympics, and also some expressing a sense of greater security, given a chance to ratchet down some of the tensions.
Now, you could not support a worse regime living on the planet. Stalin and Hitler were as bad or worse. Per capita even killed more people, but probably not even as psychotically ridiculous. I mean, the North Koreans are under total slavery.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
You know, I tempted fate. Last week I talked about how I hadn't had really a fever or been sick other than allergies in about 8 years. And so sure enough, I got a fever last night. And it's gone away, but I am, if you watch me on television, you can see I'm sweating a little bit. I bundled up last night, let the fever go up to about 103. And that's what fevers do. They get rid of bacteria, viruses, whatever the issues are. And so I'm pretty much out of the woods, thank God, compared to everybody else has had. But that's tempting fate for you. You know, some of these stories I've got here are so big that I really don't even feel like I'm doing a good enough job just mentioning these bombshell reports. But they all tie together, and we're going to break it all down here today. But let me just roll some of the footage I mentioned of what they want banned, and that is when Pence wasn't cheering the North Koreans, and then when the North Korean dictator's sister wasn't cheering the Americans. And our leftist media like Whoopi Goldberg and everybody else have said, how dare Pence do this, and just groveled. But see, there she is, not clapping when he was clapping there, actually, for the Japanese. So Pence was clapping for the Japanese there, as I've seen the wider shot. The Japanese president's holding up his Japanese flag. And so that's how they're acting. But our media only ran with Pence not clapping to say, oh, see how horrible Pence is. I mean, the North Koreans are a complete cult of evil, complete narcissistic mental patient evil, suppressing their own population. So there's the footage that NBC has been so desperate to pull after people saw it. But we have a right to show it. We have a right to document it. We have a right to detail it under classic fair use to analyze what's really happening. All right, when we come back, I'm going to get into how they're planning to demoralize us, their master plan, and all this leftist media pushing the idea of murdering white people and how cool it is. And we'll also get to that Vice piece I mentioned where they have these vacation spots free of white people. This is what the left and Hollywood are pushing, and they're successfully dividing our culture to make us slaves. And all of this ties together. All the things we're facing, all the different things we're dealing with. And the big question is, can humans deal with the technology and the systems that we have and the systems that we're developing? Because if you look at what the social engineers are doing and what their internal white papers admit that they are up to, it is a admitted diabolical plan to bring in a one-world government, to dumb the public down, and to make life so unhappy and so miserable that we accept plugging into virtual reality and basically give up our consciousness and agree to be merged with machines, believing that we're going to be given eternal life, but really you're being executed when you give your body up, and the AI computer will just be able to basically fool you and fool your loved ones and fool others that are conversing with it, that it really is the person that's gone on to merge with their silicon gods. This is the admitted plan. And they've got all these viral videos out of Boston Dynamics robots opening doors for each other. Merkel Phelan's written about that today for Infowars.com. But the real plan being pushed by the World Government Summit in Dubai this year is that humans will have to merge with machines, and that you will not be given a choice, and that humans as we know it are over. And again, that decision has been made to do that to you and your family. And to make the world so ugly and so out of control, they turn everything upside down. They have Hollywood attacking the family. They have Hollywood attacking the relationships of men and women. They have the social engineers, the Jesuit Pope, Francis, who got into power, again, using blackmail against the other Pope for reported pedophilia within the Catholic Church. His deputy gets busted trafficking 100 children. He says last week, shut it down, don't talk about it. I mean, these are monsters, ladies and gentlemen. He comes out and says China's the best example of church's social doctrine. I know I've already mentioned this 3 times today. It's so big. Pope Francis' zeal in embracing a totalitarian government of China by first agreeing to replacing underground church leaders with state-chosen hacks, and now with a top Vatican official saying those who best realize the social doctrine of the church are the Chinese, and that the Chinese communists have done amazing jobs for the church. That's how they plan on making it so ugly you'll go ahead and merge with AI. And then, what did Sean Parker talk about last year, the former head of Facebook? What did other executives at Facebook this year come out and say? We did this to make you alone, to lower your IQ, and to make you depressed, and we have bots and fake people that nudge and control you socially into the worldview we want for control, and we admit this is immoral and bad. And that's why, here's NBC, New York. I have another one here, CBS News, New York. No more best friends. Some schools consider banning best friends. It goes on to say, this is all happening, it's just happening in Europe, happening all over, it's a global movement. rumored to have first started in Prince George's South London School, Tavistock Institute. The push for breakup best friends is catching on, says clinical psychologist Dr. Barbara Greenberg. Yeah. Don't want to have people you actually count on. Just to kind of have a bunch of friends you don't really know. There has been a movement in some American schools and European schools to ban the phrase best friend. Oh, see, banning words. It's not just Nazi words. Greenberg said the idea of banning the phrase best friends is a very intriguing social experiment. Oh, you're in a social experiment, see? They want you totally alone. They want your soul. They want you under the screen sickness. Totally alone, disassociative, like a sociopath or a psychopath, but artificially unable to communicate or interface with other people or to ever really just pay attention to what people are saying. The attention spans are now less than a goldfish in the Western world. That's on record. People can't remember stuff 10 seconds to the next 10 seconds. Prisoners designed by the psych warfare chiefs with TV in the last 70 years, lowering the attention span so that people can't even put two and two together. And so you can have all the liberal leaders and all the different national black leaders and people calling for race war and have President Obama's painter who did his portrait showing white women's heads cut off and saying it's part of the black royalty, the black royalty of a black woman to have an arrogant, insolent face with white women's heads cut off. That's what he paints. This is the total mental illness. We're going to cover that again, as I said, coming up in the next segment with the Vice clips about vacationing away from whites. And then it's like, whites aren't human. They shouldn't be allowed to travel or live. Where are they getting this? From the universities, from the big banks, with their agenda to totally make society and culture dysfunctional. And then if you try to counter it, Democrat corporation pressures YouTube to censor content or else, including InfoWars. And that ties into Bill Gates says that they need to censor off the, quote, hate news. When this is pro-love news exposing the globalists and trying to fight for our humanity. Now, we're going to go to break, and when I come back, we're going to get into the screen sickness, we're going to get into the AI takeover, we're going to get into how we can stop it by waking people up across the board. And another way you can stop it is spreading the videos and the articles from this show. They're fighting every way they can to stop you. I got a whole bunch of messages here, and I'll show you some coming up where people said that they no longer get our YouTube feed and their subscription. They no longer get the Facebook feed and their subscription. They got to go to the site to find it every day. They got to go to Facebook, my own page, or YouTube to find it. And that's all part of the incremental censorship that internal documents and hidden cameras from Project Veritas have shown. So again, we know what they don't want getting out. Let's get it out.
You are the resistance.
The admitted plan is a scientific breakaway AI civilization that is destabilizing the current human-based civilization ahead of the AI takeover. Now, I've been retrospective quite a bit lately, and I've been thinking about what have I not done a good job on. And it's going back to Endgame that I made 11 years ago and to other reports where we laid out exactly the plan, word for word, what is in CNBC today from Dubai at the World Government Summit with top world leaders and top tech company execs and top futurists saying humanity will be obsolete within 30 years. We will merge with machines, and everyone else will be exterminated. Now, that is the plan. Oh, but just last year, the New York Times said, what is globalism? The thing Alex Jones made up. And it was a huge article saying globalism doesn't exist and Jones is insane. That's the mind trick where they're building a giant breakaway civilization. I've probably read 500, I don't know, articles that are white papers written by them. I've read a bunch of books they've written on it. And it's the most satanic crap you ever read by these executives. They're like, I will become a god and everyone else will bow before me. And if you don't accept AI, I'll step on you like a bug. And we're going to blast off of the corners of the universe and take over. And it's going to be unspeakably great. And and it's just crazy. And then you read about the executives, half their kids, like I said, end up in prison or committing suicide. They're totally dysfunctional and crazy. I've been around some of them before. They're clearly on some type of high-tech drugs. And, I mean, these people shouldn't be charting our course. And all I'm saying is they admit the attack on the family, all the race war crap. All of it is to demoralize us and to make a future very bleak so that we all just give into video games, TV, Hollywood, our smartphones, which they admit disassociate us from friends and family, disassociate us from neighbors. And if you just joined us, I'm reading from Australia to Germany to the United States. Well, like, it's a wonderful experiment getting rid of best friends and maybe friends, period. They don't want you to have people you count on, a husband, a wife, a best friend you've known since high school. They don't want you to have those commitments. They want you totally alone. That's what they said they funded the whole free love thing in the 60s. That's in all the white papers from the 50s, again, from the Tavistock Institute and others. They said, we're going to push free love so that people don't stay together and don't even care about their kids so the state can take control of the family. And it doesn't mean I'm sitting here like some goody two-shoes going, you're going to go to hell, son, if you have sex with that girl. And look, I grew up in all this. I'm not a hypocrite. And I ended up having a family and having children despite the system designed to keep me from doing that, or to have me actually with my children. But it worked as hard as it could to try to stop that, and still works to try to stop that. And they admit their whole plan is, you can't have a family, you can't have church, you can't have God. Remember at the State of the Union, MSNBC, CNN, they all had pundits going, whoa, what is that? You don't get that anymore. That's a bygone era. Yeah, there's DW, Big German News. Hello, Big Brother, how China controls its citizens through social media. And if you don't behave, you get banned from it. And then you have a global score. When I mean global, it's not a worldwide score. It's global in all of China, which now makes it global. A 360 overview where that ties into all your real credit and everything. And if you behave well, then you get more little chits in your video game. It's the Gulag Archipelago meets the digital Gulag. How does Max Kaiser put it? You merge a casino with a gulag, casino gulag. Social credit system, which blacklists citizens. We first reported on that. It's all over the news in 2018. We first reported on that. Paul Watson did 4 years ago. And they banned that article on Facebook and Twitter. I mean, they were so scared of that. And if you want to know, again, why they're so scared of us, we will simply go to white papers where they're getting it ironed out, getting it ready before they roll it out ubiquitously. We'll go in during beta and go, hey, this really sounds bad. Do you think this is a good idea? They don't want your input socially. They want it to just roll out everywhere, and then suddenly all the TVs are watching and listening to you, and suddenly your kid's got a smartphone lowering their IQ, and they don't care about you anymore. They want to hit you. 50 years after fluoridation. Wow, fluoride causes lower IQs. Wow, it causes all sorts of lower fertility and cancer. Wow, when it's already too late. You're already down with the sickness. So when you look at Facebook, Twitter, Google, they're all using the Chinese model, and it's all, I have Bill Gates today and the head of Unilever saying, shut down conservative media. And then that's supposed to control you, what you say and what you do, or you'll be banned off those platforms. But then pretty soon you're banned no matter what you do, because it's all about total control to where you can't even say best friend. The idea of banning the phrase best friend is very intriguing social experiment. It's like a fun thing. Oh, we're banning best friends. We're not in a cult or anything. Oh, let me show you this. I mentioned it. Here it is. Obama's artist portrays white girl beheaded by empowered black woman. Infowars.com. This is the portrait artist for Obama, who he's supposedly real good friends with. This just marks the latest in every form of leftist art being supercharged with racial hatred. Talk about butchering a white woman. I'll just butcher the name. Kyan Wiley. It's like Hyde Wiley, the artist behind the new portrait of President Obama, portrayed the beheading of a white girl by a black woman, 2012. Well, she does a bunch of these, or he does a bunch of these. The art piece, Judith Beheading Holofernes, places a woman of color, specifically a black woman, in a position of power and majesty. This is so important because of the racism and sexism that women of color have historically and continue to face today.